Hello, welcome to Moonshine Stitchery. This is a channel about cross stitch, and today is going to be my WIP parade. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you stick around. I hope you subscribe if you like my stitchy projects. This video is going to give you an overview of all of my current works in progress. That's what WIP stands for. And so you'll be able to get a pretty good idea about the sort of stitching that we'll talk about here on my channel. I do a 2-week update regularly, and this one is going to be a Flosstube extra because we're going to talk about all of my projects. So I'm going to be referencing my 2 WIP journals. They are, they hold all my projects ever since forever. They've been updated like when I'm done stitching something. So I've updated this table of contents, but this book contains all these projects, and some of them have been completed since I made that table of contents, and then this book contains these projects. So this book is not completely full, but it makes it so I can easily find things. They are numbered and the pages are numbered so I can find projects and update them when I've stitched on them. So I'm also going to be following along with my WIP parade from last year. My Flosstube anniversary, the anniversary from when I started my Flosstube channel, falls in March. So I always just do my WIP parades in March. So I know I'm a couple months behind everybody else that usually does it at the beginning of the year. But for consistency on my channel, that's why I'm doing it now. So I hope that you enjoy, because we have a lot to talk about. We're just gonna get right into it. So grab some stitching and a little snack maybe, and let's talk about what I like to stitch. So I am gonna be going chronologically through everything, and that's gonna be helpful to me to refer to my WIP journals as well, because they show when I started them and things like that. And I will be able to show you when I have a project that I finished this year too. I will just hold that up for you real quick so you can see kind of the progression of how my year went. So the first thing I have to share with you is going to be a finish, because this was the first WIP that I talked about last year. This is Halloween This Way by the Primitive Hare. And yeah, I'm not gonna like go into super great detail on anything, but this was stitched on the 30 count linen that was called for, and it's all the called for flosses. It's DMC and a few specialty flosses, and then I painted this frame with a multi-chrome finish nail polish that I created just so I could paint this frame. And this was a WIP for a very long time, so when I finally finished it, I was super pumped. So this was the first thing you saw in last year's WIP parade. The next project that I finished in 2020, well, okay, so these weren't finishes in order, but this is the next project that I talked about in the WIP parade, and this one is from Primrose Cottage, and I used all of the called for DMCs with this. This was a delightful stitch. I just picked up a frame probably from Hobby Lobby or something and plopped it right in there. There's no glass on any of my finishes, so if you like font, this one was really, really fun to stitch. And this is stitched on just plain white even weave, a 32 count. The next project in last year's WIP parade was my Garden Prelude by Mirabilia, and I just recently finished this. So I'll probably show this again in my next regular Flosstube, but since I'm going in order of my last WIP parade, I get to share with you that it's all done. So this was my 2 strands a day for most of 2024. Well, like the back half of 2024 and all the way until the first day of March. So this is my first Mirabilia, and she is all done. And this is Garden Prelude, and that's Elizabeth, and I love her so much. The next Mirabilia I will be starting is Mary Mary, the Christmas one that just came out. So yes, very, very excited. We'll talk about this again in the next video, but this is stitched on the 32 count natural raw, or whatever was called for, with the called for specialty floss, DMC, and all the beads and stuff. The next project that you saw in my WIP parade is Lavender Farm from Kore Batakori, and I have put that project in timeout, so we're not going to be talking about that one this year, but here's where I was at in the last WIP parade, and I just had discovered that I wasn't that interested in stitching on it because of the 2/2, and you're gonna kind of see, since we're going chronologically, a little bit like how my preferences have changed over time. So anyway, that project is in timeout. I haven't had any desire to stitch on it in 2024 pretty much. The next project is another finish. This is pretty fun because I did make a big effort in 2024 to finish up my oldest WIPs. So this one was my 2 strands a day stitching right before Mirabilia. And this is Halloween Quaker from Leela's Studio, and it's stitched on Cauldron from Picture This Plus. I love stitching on even weave. I don't love the 2 strand stitching, but I do love how soft even weave is to stitch on, and it's really nice for over 1 stitching. So this again is using all of the called for flosses. We're going to be getting out of my trend to use linen that I purchased online and called for flosses, but back in the day I was. So this was another big finish for me in 2024. The next project that was a WIP in the last video was Halloween This Way from Sue Hillis, and I finished it into this little pillow. I decided to not include the writing down here that said, I think, Happy Halloween, and make a little pillow of it. This is stitched on pumpkin from Fiber on a Whim, using all of the called for DMC, and I love it. It's so cute. I think I finished this maybe after Halloween, because I don't feel like I really got to display this year. So this was one of my older WIPs as well. Got done in 2024, and I love it. It's so cute. Okay, so we are finally to my first project that is still a WIP. This is Spring Montage, the full coverage version, not the kit version. So I'm stitching this on Ada, and I'm doing 2/1 on, it's either 18 or 20 count. And I'm doing diagonal parking, and I've put up on the screen what the whole project will look like, but also where I was last year at this time. So I started this, what did I say, June 2022. This was my first full coverage thing that I started. As you can see by how much is done, I don't often pull out full coverage, but when I want to stitch full coverage, I really, really enjoy it. So, yeah, I do really like it. I use the Markup XP app, and I really like the diagonal parking as well, which is something I learned from Brian at Blitz Stitch. But I don't think I was down in this flower like at all last time, and that's been really fun. And yes, I need to get something to hold my flosses, but you know what? It works, and I don't mind that it doesn't look pretty while I'm doing it. So all the called for DMCs, and I'm using 2 floss strands. I don't know why I chose that for this 18 count, but I did. So it's gonna be puffy and plump and beautiful, but it's gonna take forever, and that's okay. My next WIP is my new 2 strands a day. And I have a lot done on this since last WIP parade. Most of it is recently because I've made this my new 2 strands a day. Now that I finished my Mirabilia, this is my next oldest WIP that is not a full coverage. I'm not gonna do my full coverage projects as my 2 strands a day stitching. Maybe I would sometime in the future, but just right now I'm not interested in doing that. Like when I get out 2-stranded stitching, I kind of want to just work on it for a while. And so that wouldn't really work very well for me for full coverage. So this project is called Happy Halloween. It's by Brian Jackson. Love for cross stitch, I feel like. I'm using, again, the Markup XP app on this because it's nearly a full coverage piece, because it does have a lot of half stitches behind the letters. And I'm really loving it. And so yeah, it's a lot easier using the Markup XP app, as like everything is. And it's just gonna say Happy Halloween, and it's super fun. I'm stitching this on Under the Sea Fabrics, again, a Lugana. This is a 28 count. And so I'm using 2-strand stitching. It's not very much farther into my WIPs. You're gonna see that I'm gonna get totally away from that. but I do really love stitching on this. Also, if you can't tell, these earlier projects, I was still doing my middle start method. I didn't say at the beginning, because I just wanted to get right into things, but I started stitching when I was about 12 years old, and I was a monogamous stitcher, exclusively dimensions kits. So I just always middle started. It was always on Ada, and it wasn't till Flosstube that I ever stitched anything that wasn't on Ada, and that basically wasn't something I could pick up in a craft store, like a big box craft store. So anyway, I definitely have learned stuff as I've gone along, and it's all good. And I didn't want to get rid of this piece. I still really, really loved it. I love his artwork. I will probably start something else from him after I finish this one. Oh, my point in telling you though is look how much fabric I wasted because of starting this in the middle. But, you know, what is life about if not to love others and learn? So, yes. My next WIP is Red Cardinals from Al Forest Embroidery. This project has been for a wild ride. So I started this in June of 2022. It's my only Al Forest embroidery. I started it on Historic Green from Fabric and Flair. I have recently, I mean not so recently, but I've decided that I don't really love stitching on Fabric and Flair projects. The linen feels like too thin, and it just grabs every little piece of like dirt, dust, ort, whatever, and it's like everything just wants to stick to it. So anyway, over time I've learned it's not my fave. But this project I started with my own, this is one of my first things I did my own conversion with, and I did it without using a DMC conversion to help me pick the right colors, and I kitted this up with Dinky Dyes, and I was just not loving it. If you've been with me for a while, you'll know the saga of this project. Every time I would get it out, I'm like, I'm just not loving it. Al Forest looks so vibrant and beautiful, and mine is not looking like that. Well, maybe about the 400th time I complained about it, I was not asking for this, but the wonderful Shelly, I'll put everybody whose Instagram or YouTubes that I mentioned down in the description bar below, she sent me her Al Forest flosses. So I completely ripped out everything that I had done, which looked like that, and I was putting back in the new colors, one color at a time. And it has just made such a difference. And now I love it. So Shelly came in and saved the day, and I'm just so grateful at her generosity and her kindness and thoughtfulness. And so now I can really enjoy this project. So this is stitched on, this was my first 40 count that is still not a finish. And so this is over one stitching, or excuse me, it's not over one, it's over two, but it's one strand. And so there we go. So actually this has been restarted like 3 times. The first time I put it on Ada, then I restarted it on this fabric, and then I ripped out all the flosses and put the new flosses in again. So that's why this thing has been through quite a journey. So there's that, Al Forest Embroidery Red Cardinals. My next WIP chronologically is Halloween at Hawk Run Hollow from Carriage House. And the last time, in my last WIP parade, I just had this bottom block done and the border of the one above it plotted out, and now it looks like this. So I'm not making massive strides on this project. I'm just not really feeling pulled to stitch on it a ton. When I do stitch on it, I do really enjoy it. Again, I was giving myself huge seam allowances here, or framing allowances. I don't really do that anymore. I end up framing a lot of stuff myself, and I conserve a little bit more fabric, but that's just me. Okay, so this is 40 count. So this was back still when I was starting 40 count. And so this is 1/2 with the call for DMCs. And this is also before I started dyeing my own linen. I had started dyeing some Ada, but I hadn't started dyeing linen yet. So this is just regular flax Newcastle. And so here's where I'm at. Also, by the way, on my nails today, this is a new shade, Moonshine Manny, my nail polish brand. We're launching our spring collection on this Friday, March 14th, and it is called Ohana Means Family, inspired by Lilo and Stitch. And this is one of the newest colors. This is called She's My Sister. It's a holographic purple with strong pink to gold shimmer. So if you are also interested in my nail polish, that is always linked down in the description bar below. I sell my nail polish. I've been making nail polish for 8 years, and I sell it on my own website. It's like basically all online. And when I started dyeing linen, I started selling it there as well. So yes, if you hear me talk about those two things today, that's where you can find that. And that's also linked in the description bar below. My next WIP is another full coverage. I only have 3, and I only had 2 for a long time. So this, I'm using diagonal parking again on this, and this is my one Heaven and Earth design. This is being stitched on 28 count, and I'm doing over 1. So this one goes slower, but I have gotten a good bit of progress for me on teeny tiny stitches. And again, just ignore the web I've got going on there. So this is the Grand Library. This is charted by Heaven and Earth. Amy Stewart is the designer. And oh my gosh, I've seen some awesome progress on this lately. I saw that somebody had finished it entirely. I wish I could remember who it was. But also I saw that Lynn from Those Missing Stitches has a ton of progress on this. Anyway, this is what mine looks like. And this is a stitch that I'm stitching for the journey, not the finish. I don't know if I will ever get this done because it will be this big. So, and I'm not doing 10 stitches. I'm doing full stitches, 1 over 1. And this is, I think, the max color version. So I've got this fire, I think this is like a dragon here. I've got him going on. But anyway, so I only have 3 full coverage pieces, and this is one of them. And I will probably have this WIP forever till I'm tired of stitching on it. But that's okay, because that's the point of it. It's just to kind of scratch that full coverage itch when I have it, which isn't super frequently, but I do enjoy having the project to stitch on when I need that. Referencing last year's WIP Parade, the next project is Strawberry Fields Forever from Blackbird Designs, and I have recently sent that to my friend Heidi from Whips and Kits, and she's gonna finish it for me because I fell out of love with that project. I do still have one Blackbird Designs that's 2 over 2, but I really love Blackbird. I love the look of Blackbird when it's 1 over 2. So I sent that to Heidi, and she's making awesome progress on it. In fact, this is how mine looked before, and this is how it looks now. When Heidi's been working on it, she sent me an updated picture, and so I think that's really fun. When I go to visit her, I will be able to see my stitched work married with hers up on her wall, and it's gonna be so fun. So the next project that I started was Consider the Lilies from Heartstring Samplery. I love this project so much, but I don't think to get it out very much. And when I do, I'm like, oh yeah, this project is so fun. It is full of all of these little motifs, which is what makes it so fun. But it's a lot of switching colors. And so it can be kind of tedious. So this is my first piece of hand-dyed linen that I ever started stitching on. So this is a piece of 40 count. I wasn't stitching on 46 back then. I started this in August of 2022, and then I didn't pick it up again until January of last year, and then not again like at all the rest of 2024. So that's why there's very little done on it. I don't know if it's not on my WIP Go board, so it's not getting spun for that, and it's just not getting spun on my wheel, and it's not for a specific day of the month, so I just never remember to get this puppy out, but I need to. So here's what dye I put on it. It's just some soft pinks, and this is a flax base, and I'm using all of the called for over-dyed flosses. So still, I'm using called for back then, and it just looks beautiful. I love this flower with the Weeks dolphin. I mean, Beth is just wonderful. Beth Twist, the designer from Heart String Sampler, she's wonderful. The next WIP that you saw in last year's WIP parade was the Supernatural Sal from the Witchy Stitcher, and I have a finish. I love how this looks. I generally really like the Witchy Stitcher's aesthetic. I'm not someone who wants to stitch like all of her patterns, but her design aesthetic is so pleasing to me. And so even though this was on, I think 16 count Ada, this is something that I dyed. And I was doing 2 over 1 and it was just eating up the floss. I love the gothic aesthetic that she has. So I have another one of these Sals from her that maybe I'll start, I don't know. But this was a really, really fun project. And as you can see, I don't have it framed yet ready for this Halloween, but I want to get it up on the wall, so I will. I feel like Halloween is one of the seasons that I really do enjoy more youthful, cartoony kind of patterns a little bit more than any of the other seasons. So that's a finish. And that's with all the called for DMCs. And this was just a PDF. I do really love stitching from a PDF. The next project I started was a Tisket a Tasket from Rosewood Manor. I think I am down to only 2 from that designer still in my WIP pile, but now it might be 1 because I've just recently put this project in timeout. So here's how the project looks. I originally decided to stitch it after seeing that it was one of Sarah Stitchy Spot's WIPs, and I fell in love with it. However, Rosewood Manor, Karen Kluba, her designs are not for the faint at heart. She switches flosses so frequently, and this design in particular, I made a couple of poor fabric choices. The first time I started over 1 on 28 count and I did not like it, it was too difficult for me at that time to do all of it over 1 on 28 count. Because I like the sewing method, I stitch everything in hand, and sewing method is really hard when you have to stitch over 1. Then I moved it to 40 count evergreen from Be Stitch Me. And here's where my progress was last time. Not very far at all. I do have more progress now, but it is just not effective on that linen. I thought it would be a cool choice. I just don't love how it doesn't pop, and because I'm not loving the stitching and not loving the fabric, I've put it in timeout. I'm not gonna worry about it for right now. So that's all we're gonna say about that. The next project is Cardinal Points from Long Dog Samplers. I remember I saw Pam stitching on this on Just Keep Stitching, Pam and Steph, and I fell in love with it, and I wanted to get all of the Gentle Art flosses and stitch it just as called for and everything. I started it on some very crunchy undyed Ada, and I was not in love with it. I started in the middle. I was like looking at the colors of that urn, and I was just thinking, this is not fun to stitch it on this fabric. So I restarted it, and I started it back up in the corner, and here's where I am now. And I do really like this project. Talk about switching flosses a lot though. Same story, just constantly switching flosses, but it's gonna look so cool when it's done. So I am holding on to this project. So this is another piece of linen that I've over dyed. I really like this colorway. So this may be one of the next ones that I release on my website. Not all of the things I dyed a long time ago have recipes in my recipe book, but this one does. So I love it because it's a white base with like a gray taupe that has like a teeny tiny bit of a mauve undertone. So anyway, this is stitched with all the called for flosses. Look at this cool color. It's so fun. So 40 count, 1/2, Cardinal Points from Long Dog Samplers. The next project that I have not finished yet. So my next oldest WIP, this is Smith Sampler from Scarlet House. And this is being stitched with the Vicki Clayton Silk Pack. This is the first time I tried her silks. And I'm stitching this on a piece of R&R Mayflower Mocha, but then I overdyed it. So all of this modeling and stuff, that's because I wanted some more interest on this piece. But the coloration, the nice deep color, that's the Mayflower Mocha. So I really need to get some more progress on this. Again, this is something that I saw on Sarah's channel. I just kind of want to stitch everything Sarah's stitching, don't we all? So this is 40 count 1/2, and I'll put up on the screen where I was last year. And it's just so fun. I love it. And Vicky Clayton silks are not my favorite silks to stitch with, but I do really like them. And they are budget friendly. So that is the Smith sampler. On September 10th, 2022, I started one of my very favorite WIPs. And this is Fruits of Plenty from Modern Folk Embroidery. And I would have a ton of WIPs from this designer, but this is such a big project and I love this design so much that every time I'm like, I should start another one from him, which I do have one other one. I just think, no, I should go stitch on Fruits of Plenty because it's so fun. So I dyed this piece of linen to give us a striking contrast. So it has this really yummy lime, like a lemon lime. There's two different colors here of modeling, so that the two colors that I chose to stitch this with would have this great effect on that color. So the two colors are Carriage House Black from Gentle Art and Deep Sea. And I love it so much. If this were my 2 strands a day, I would not be mad. But if you can't tell, I'm picking like my oldest WIP. I think I already said this, but the way I pick my 2 strands a day is I pick my oldest WIP if it's not a full coverage, and then I stitch on that till it's done. So yeah, this is 40 count, so it is 1/2, and I adore this. This next project is Mary Morgan's from Fox and Rabbit. It is on Fabric and Flare Natural or Neutral, which looks like this. It's a printed fabric. And this project has been almost put in timeout many times, many times, because A, I don't really care for this fabric anymore, but B, I have a hard time with the primary colors of this stitch. And I just, since starting this, originally when I started it, I was in love with the colors. Since then, I'm not so much. I don't like to stitch on something that's so clashy, and that's just, for me, that's just my personal preference. But every time I'm like, I'm gonna put this in timeout, I think I have so much done on it. And then you guys in the comments tell me, just keep going. So I do. But yeah, that's the status of this. So I'm gonna put up here where I was last time, and not last time you saw it, but last WIP parade. So I have made some good progress. I wanted to get down in this big flower that's right down here. So I'm kind of working my way down here now instead of doing these primary colors across the top little blocks. So yeah. If I were to start this project now, I would do my own floss conversion entirely. But I'm not gonna restart this project, so yeah. This next project is the Autumn Sampler kit from Marejka. This is the only kit that I currently have going. It is on 14 count, and I only stitched on this one time in 2024 because tale as old as time. It's kit fabric, it's 14 count Aida, it's 2/1, and it is confetti heavy. So I don't even know if we're looking at this right. I think that is. I think that's the top left-hand corner. I love the colors in this. I wish I had this in my Markup XP app. I wish that. I bet I would get more progress on this. And then I put in this back stitching, which helped me enjoy that a little bit more the last time I got this out, but there's not too much I need to say about this. You can see where I was at and how it's supposed to look. It's a really cool kit, and I love the colors. I just don't love stitching on this piece of fabric. So the things I've learned. All right, my next project is Let Love Rain from Teresa Kogut. And this project has 2 firsts. This is the first time I did my whole own conversion from stash. And This is my first time stitching on 46 count. So I over dyed this piece of 46 count. Man, it is soft. I wanted to get it a little bit dark and dirty, so I did. And here's where I'm at now. So I'm doing over 2, sorry, 1/2 on 46 count. I really love this stitch. I have quite a few Teresa Kogut stitches. I love them. My journal says I only stitched on this twice in 2024, but I'm pretty sure I got one more time on it recently, so yes. So there's where I was before, and I really do like this. If you're interested in my conversion for this project, I think it's like 3 or 4 episodes ago, I put it up on the screen, so love that. This next start was from September 20th, 2022, and my stitch journal says that I only stitched on this 3 times in total, which I don't know about that, but this is from Plum Street. This is This Happy Morning, and I have not made a ton of progress on this because you have to make some kind of bigger jumps between things, and I also find this stitch a little bit monotonous. You know, you've got like 5 main colors you're using, so I don't know, I think I just get tired of like the big stretches of green. And then I've got this really cool house to do, but I haven't started it very much yet. As you can see, I've started plotting it out over here. So this is Plum Street. This is Morning Fog by Bestitch Me. Love this fabric. Love, love, love. So yeah, this just needs to come out some more. I do still really love it, so I am definitely going to finish it, but it's not one that I think of very often. When I think of stitching a big house on blue fabric, I usually think of Winter Rose Manor. So yeah, this is 1/2 on 36 count. One of maybe only a handful of 36 count projects. Next up we have Scary Sampler from Heartstring Samplery, one of the coolest samplers I have. And I should mention, I keep track of all, like I can easily find all of my projects because I have them in different bins. I have one very big bin for anything samplery, then I have a Christmas bin, a summer bin, a fall or Halloween bin, and then a doesn't fit into any of these categories bin. So that's how I go to search for the specific projects. So since we're going in chronological order, I needed to go to my Halloween bin to search for Scary Sampler. I started this on September 24th. I was still just in a starting kick in 2022, and this is the first time that I stitched on 32 count only using 1 strand, and this is when I decided that that was the life for me. So I hand dyed this Belfast linen to make it very creepy to go along with this super cool sampler. She has since released this as a not scary version, but if you like the scary version that has all of the cool pop culture sci-fi or fantasy references in there, then you can take your pick. So I feel like I've gotten pretty good amount done on this. I was getting kind of bored up here because it's a really intensive border, and so then I came down and I did all of the words, and then I did all of these pterodactyls, and then started in on, I think this is a Doctor Who reference. I don't watch Doctor Who, but the pattern tells you what everything is about. So yes, this is still using all the called for flosses, but it's 1/2 on 32 count. This next WIP is Autumn Cloche from Liz Matthews, and I was able to get a little bit more done this year, happily, but this one kind of sat a little stagnant for a little while. I started this on September 29th, 2022. And this is the first project that I used MPIs and then discovered that they are my favorite silk to stitch with. I love them so much, how they play in the fabric. So this project, however, I was super, super excited to start it, but I have trouble maintaining interest on this when I'm stitching on it. So I usually only stitch for a day and then I'm ready to switch it up already, which is why it's one of my older projects that doesn't have very much done on it. So yeah, I'm hoping to rectify this and just get this done, because this is one of the kind of projects where it might not be my most fun thing to stitch, but aesthetically I would really love to have this out. So this is 1/2. Oh, the other reason I think I don't have a ton of interest for this stitch is I just put it on plain flax, which is fine. It's just that's not where I'm at these days, and so it's not as interesting for me, but that's where I'm at now. Sorry, I want to make this easier for me to screenshot for next year, since that's what I'm doing this year when I'm trying to grab screenshots for comparisons. So that's Autumn Cloche from Hello from Liz Matthews. Started this next project on October 3rd, 2022. We're still in 2022. This is my other Long Dog samplers. This is Sneak. And this is the first time I tried a single silk stitch, but I'm stitching it with a highly variegated floss. This is the floss called Love from Mrs. Sadie's Silk. So I love that I started it this way, but I also kind of don't, because the design is a little bit less impactful with that highly of a variegated floss, but I still do really love it. It's such a cool project to stitch on. It's just the things that I've learned since have informed me that I would do this a little differently now, but that's okay. I still really like it, and this is just, it's so involved and so cool to stitch. So let me make sure I can get a screenshot of that. Anyway, this is stitched. This is a piece of linen that I overdyed, which again, I did it on purpose to bring the colors out of this, but maybe it's too busy for a very, very busy floss. Maybe that's another thing. So I don't know, things to think about. Like, I think now I would use this linen, but then pick a floss that is just that dark indigo. I think that would be my preference. So that's okay. Anyway, Mrs. Sadie's Silk is really nice to stitch with, and so this is 40 count, so it's 1/2. And that's the other nice thing about this is you just use the same floss the whole time. And I only stitched on this once in 2024. Oh, and apparently it was before my last WIP parade, so that looks exactly the same as it did last year. Okay. Next up we have Plum Street Samplers, the Addams Family, and this is a 36 count piece of linen called Sand Dollar from Bestitch Me. I started this on November 4th, 2022, and I'm using all the called for flosses. So here's how it looks. I only stitched on this, I think, once since my last Flosstube. This is another project that it doesn't really call to me to stitch this, and since I started this, I have learned about myself that if I'm stitching with a lot of neutrals, I have to liven the called for flosses up a little bit by putting in some more interesting floss. So while these flosses are very beautiful and gonna give like the exact neutral look when you're just looking at this after it's done, for the process stitcher in me, I need a little bit more fun paint to play with. So that's why I rarely think of stitching on this, because I just need a little bit more funsies. So anyway, beautiful linen from Bestitch Me. Gorgeous. 36 count, so I did 1/2 with all the called for flosses. Time to share another finish. This is Folksy Thomas. I started this on November 5th, 2022. And this is from Teresa Kogut. This is with all of the called for DMC and a few specialty flosses. This is on a piece of linen that I overdyed to give it that fun green. And it's a 40 count. And I love him. And I think he was my 2 strands a day for a little bit to just get him all finished up. So that was a finish in September of 2024. My next WIP is Cold Sea Sampler from Modern Folk Embroidery, and this project looks like this, and I love it. I think this one is kind of up on my list to finish because it's it's only gonna go like here. You know, it's not a super big stitch from Modern Folk Embroidery, and I'm only stitching it with Weeks mascara, which makes it really easy. This beautiful fabric is Whimsical from Bestitch Me. This is a 40 count, and I am just such a sucker for the look of that. It's just so old but still so fresh. Like, it harkens back and connects us to our ancestry, but Jacob just makes it still so fresh and accessible, and I just love what he does. So I really, really like this piece. This is an example of what I should have done with Sneak, but I have learned since starting Sneak, I learned, and I did this way. So anyway, I love this so much. This 40 count, so it's 1/2, and it looks like I've only stitched on this 4 times since starting it, but I did get 2 times stitching on it in 2024. So there's a good amount done since last WIP parade. Okay, I think that this project is my only remaining Rosewood Manor in my WIP pile. This, because of my fabric choice, I'm enjoying it a lot more than the other things I started from her, but it still does have the same issue that I have with all the other stitches, which is that it just switches floss so much. Okay, I started this project on November 21st, 2022. We are still in my first year of discovering Flosstube and all the wonderful designers out there. So Paisley Pumpkin is stitched on 40 count on a piece of linen that I dyed for this project. And I love what Karen does. It's so beautiful. I just love to sit and look at it. It's not, however, my favorite thing to stitch. I do enjoy it. Like, I'm not putting this project in timeout. I do enjoy it. However, I don't enjoy it as much as other things. But I just love the effect. I really, really love what she does. I'm a great admirer. So, I still really want this done, but I don't find myself prioritizing it very much. So this is with all the Call for DMCs. Look how beautiful. DMC, baby. This next project is from Autumn Lane, and this is Autumn Town, and this project has come close to being put in timeout many times. This project has a few, I think it's 3 Glorianas. It's this one, and the yellow, I think. This is almost the same dye job I did on this fabric as I did for the last one. It's a 40 count dyed by me, and it's gonna be nearly full coverage. There's gonna be this color of the green showing through, which I didn't quite dye a dark enough green for this, which is one of the reasons why I just keep almost DNFing it. The other reason is I just don't enjoy the stitch as much as other things. But I did take it all the way over to the edge, so now I see what the confines of my stitch are. I just need to go, okay, wait, psych. That is the edge of the top cloud. So it's gonna go like this far. So I don't actually know the confines of my stitch, but it's like this if I'm looking at the pattern. So the cover shot. Yeah, I really love how this looks. I really love the design, but I don't really love stitching on it. And since I'm a process stitcher, I have to love the stitch. But I do, if you have been with me, you know that I have ways to randomly draw projects so that things do get worked on, even if they're not like on the forefront of my mind. So this does come out occasionally, just not organically because I'm just like, oh, I really want to stitch on that. You know? So this didn't come out at all in 2024, but I did intentionally stitch on it at the very start of 2025 because I pulled out any project I didn't stitch on in 2024 and got some progress on it. So, yeah. This next WIP is Winter Rose Manor from With Thy Needle and Thread. This feels like it's my oldest WIP. This feels like it's been taking me forever. And I'm getting very close, but I'm not there yet. So as you can see, I will need to fill in that whole house. In fact, I have a needle in there with conch on the needle. Whoops. So I'm getting quite close, like I said, but this is still going to take a massive amount of work, and then there's stuff right here. And then there's all of these flowers that need to be put in still. So, yeah. This is on some 28 count that I overdyed. Like I said, I love stitching on even weave, but it's going to be huge, which is fine because it's such a beautiful project. But it's on 28 count, so yeah, it's just taken a while. That's okay. This is another, you know, thing I learned about myself, but that's okay. But I'm using 1 strand over 2 on this. This is my only 28 count with 1 strand if it's not over 1. So I do really like this. I just can't seem to get her done, you know? But I love, love, love this project. I want to start every opening flower, but I'm not going to start it till after I'm done with this. And you know I'm not going to start it on 28 count. So this is with all the called for flosses. Even conch. I think roasted marshmallow was out when I went to kit this up. So I think I might be using light khaki by weeks. Okay, and I started Winter Rose Manor on December 12th, 2022. This is Stony Creek Oh Holy Night, which I started on December 16th, 2022. This is on Morning Mist 40 count from Atomic Ranch Fabrics. And this is a very small 40 count. It shrunk up quite a bit. So I think of this as more like 46 count. And I'm using all the called for DMCs. I think I did get a good amount of progress since last year. And I am highlighting my pattern as I go. Because the pattern for this is, the hard copy was only like $5 or something, like extremely budget friendly. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna highlight the pattern, which I also highlighted my pattern on my Mirabilia. I had to. It was so hard to remember what I'd done. So I love the Nativity. It is one of my very favorite forms of art to see, is the Nativity. I just love it so much, with the mother, the father, and the baby, and the people in their community coming in to support them, and the beautiful sign of God from above. And I just love it. So I was in search for a while of like the perfect nativity chart, and I really love this one. I think I saw it on Brian Blitzstitch's channel, I think. And I do still like the linen that I put it on, even though it's not as dark as you would probably think of for a dark nativity scene. But this is like it's nearly like stitching a full coverage dimension kit. Whereas there's not very much background, but all the people are just really dense and confetti heavy. So it's taking me a while, but I do love it. I wish it wasn't as much neutrals, but you know, it's a nativity scene. So yeah. If anything, I kind of wish that I were stitching it on a different fabric. That one's just so puffy and tiny. But I very much want to have that done and up on my wall. So this one might be my last WIP that I started in 2022. We might be finally about to be finished with that. This one is very special to me. This is a piece of linen that my friend Heidi from Whips and Kits Coffee Tea dyed for me. This is a 40 count. And this is memories from the past, from Hands Across the Sea. This is my first hat sampler that I think we started together. And I'm using all of the Call for DMC, and I love them. This is a very purpley sampler, but it's also very colorful if you look at that alphabet. So I really, really like it, but it does change floss a lot. So the last time or two that I got this out, I was like, I just want to stay with the same floss, and I was working on the words. So yes, it's real pretty, really, really pretty. I think that the DMCs, they almost feel like a little too fluffy for this. I kind of wish I were using like the Vicky Clayton silks, a little smaller for this fabric, but yeah. So here's where I'm at now to compare against where I was at last WIP parade. Okay, we're officially in 2023. I think I started this around January 5th, 2023. You guys did just see this recently. I did get it out and put some stitches on it after seeing it on Erica, Fibers and Floss Canada's channel. If you aren't subscribed to her, please go do so. She is wonderful. And we're stitching on a few projects in common. So this is my chatelaine. This was my New Year, New Start for 2023. I was very excited to start a chatelaine. I've been kitting it up a little bit by a little bit because they are quite expensive to kit up all together. And if you go check out Erica's channel, she's stitching it like this. Like she's doing the whole middle part and then she's gonna move out and do everything like that around it and then move out from there. I started from like the first page and I just was like, I'm gonna stitch this whole first page, you know? And then move page to page. So that's why mine looks like this. Whoopsie. I'm stitching this on some 18 count Ada, and I'm doing all of the specialty stitches on the 18 count. It's fine, I'm just going through the middle of a square. It's fine. And I chose to do white so that it would be really nice contrast for the colors. And I just really love it. If you see any like missing spots, it's because I just need to get the big treasures or whatever is missing in there. And then there's a few spots where I need to pick up another floss. So, yep, here's for the comparison. And I really enjoy it. I'm doing one, am I doing 1/2 or am I doing 2/2? I asked myself the same question when I got this back out to stitch on it. I'm doing 2/2. Yes, that's right. That's one thing that I wish I hadn't done on this. I wish I was just doing 1/2. Especially because I'm using such expensive materials, aside from the Ada, of course. But, you know, that is what it is. So, that is my one chatelaine I have, and when I get the urge to stitch on chatelaine, I'm very happy that I have that project. I don't want to stitch on something as big as this all the time, but I do really enjoy it when I have it out. On January 15th, 2023, I started my first Reflet de Soie piece. This is Louisa Barney, and I had seen it on Contented Needleworker Kim's channel and just fell in love. And looking at where I was in my last WIP parade, I do actually have quite a bit for me done. That's greatly aided by the fact that I'm stitching this with Heidi from Whips and Kits, and with Kim, we were stitching every Monday until she recently, I think last month, got it finished. So very excited for her, and you can see it prominently displayed behind her on her recent Flosstube, and it's just gorgeous, and she's using the DMCs, or she used the DMCs. Heidi and I got this converted, a floss conversion from Needle in a Haystack. And so we're using 103s on this. This is a piece of 40 count that I over dyed. This is 1 strand over 2 with the 103s. And it's slow going because of that border. It's just really intense and really cool. This is another project that I am marking my working copy with a highlighter, or else I cannot tell what I've done. So a lot of times when I get this out, I'm just looking at where I think I should be at and just seeing, wait a second, did I already do that part? What's missing out of that flower? So yeah, I do really like this stitch though, but it is humongous and it is very fun, but it is one of my more difficult stitches. Joy wants to say hi for a second. This is my youngest. I can't hear you. What do you want to say?
Hi.
Have you done any stitching lately?
No.
No. She just wants to say hi to the people. Okay, scoop. On February 5th of 2023, I started my first Carolyn Manning. Shortly after falling in love with her design, I have many Carolyn Manning patterns, and I had been holding off starting a new one until I finished this one, until I recently changed my mind. So this is Sundown from Carolyn Manning. I'm stitching this on a piece of Fabric and Flare stone. I think this is the last thing I started on it, and it will be the last thing I start on it. It's particularly not that great in combination with DMCs on a full coverage piece. Now that I've started another project from her, I don't like that I can see through and see like the fabric poking through. That's just me, but this is slow going. I, in 2024, put this into my Markup XP app and it is helping, but it is slower going than the other Carolyn Manning that I recently started at Christmas time for some reason. So maybe it's because of the vertical and horizontal lines, But I don't know. But anyway, I do love this design. It is so cool once it's done and once you have it out back. I'm gonna just love having this up on the wall. But as it is, stitching on it, it's not as fun. A lot of it's just not my preference for the fabric. But yes, I do still think it is really, really cool. So this is with the Call for DMCs over 1 on the 40 count, started on February 5th of 2023. This next project I adore, and yet I don't have hardly anything done on it, and I'm sad about that. This is Summer Quaker from Leila's Studio. I love everything about this project. I love the linen I dyed for it. This is a 40 count, and it is kind of similar to Snowfall on my website, but the modeling is more significant on this. Snowfall's less intense. So 40 count, my own floss conversion, and I just love a Quaker. But I only stitched on this once in 2024, and it looks like I only stitched on it like once in 2023. So anyway, here you can see the side by side. Now that I have Halloween Quaker done, I mean, I should be ready to, maybe I'll plop this into its spot on my Mania chart so that it's at least coming out more frequently for that. So we'll see. But that is Leila's Studio Summer Quaker 1/2 on 40 count. That one I had started on March 19th. This one, my notebook says I started it on February 13th, so a little out of order there in my notebook, but that's okay. So this is Teresa Kogut Remember Me, and I love it so much. I can't believe how she was doing such huge projects for her Patreon once upon a time ago, but yes, this is another huge sampler. I am doing my own conversion for this because I just need a little bit more interest in these golden browns that she has used a lot in this project and in Let Love Rain. But I really love it. That is the width of that inside border. And whoops. So yeah, this is a 40 count, again, dyed by me. And I have not stitched on this that many days. It looks like I started this, yeah, it looks like I stitched on this, I started it and then got it out for like 2 days in 2024 consecutively, and then that was it. So this, yeah, we'll see. No promises that it's coming out again anytime soon, because there's just so many projects that I love. This next project has had one more full row added to it, so twice as much is done now as was done this time last year, so that's good. It's on my Mania board, so it comes out more frequently because my Mania pieces have 2 chances to be rolled rather than just the one. So this is a year of celebrations, or a season of celebrations year, season 2, from Hands On Design. And this is stitched on Be Stitch Me Hot Coffee, and I love it. It's hot cocoa, and this is the Fat Quarter Shop floss conversion. And one of the main changes is anything that was black is dark brown, I feel like now, or gray. So it eliminated, or it's like a softer black. So it eliminated any like stark black, and then it took out any purple, I guess, and put pink in it. Which is not why I did it. I just saw it on Nicole Spor's channel and I was like, whoa, that is really pretty with that conversion. So I went and got it. So this is 40 count, so 1/2. This is the most recent block that I did, and I love that one. June is my favorite. So I need to go in and get started on the second half of this. That'll be really fun. Okay, moving on to March 31st of 2023. I started a pattern from Jasmine Made with Love. This is Never Forget. And then I proceeded to not stitch on it again till January 2025. This was one of the ones that I didn't stitch on at all in 2024, so I pulled it out to make sure it got some stitches on at the beginning of the year. This is stitched 1/2 on 28 count Jobelin, and so it's giving a really sparse look, but I love it. I'm telling you guys, even weave is it's just such a delight to stitch on. And this is Under the Sea Fabrics in the color Valkyrie. And so this is gonna be huge. If I had picked a smaller count and stitched it, it could have been like a tiny cute little pillow, but in any case, it's really pretty. So this is being stitched with my own conversion of flosses. So never forget, from Yasmin Made with Love. Next WIP is another Plum Street Samplers. This is on a piece of fabric that I dyed, and this is using the called for flosses. This project is called This I Know. I really love this one. It is really, really sweet. I love the message, but I just haven't got a ton done on this one. But I am using the called for floss, which is like half DMC and half overdyed, I think. And so yeah, 1/2 on 40 count. This next one is a finish for now. This is GGR, The Dutch Steps of Life. And I started this on May 13th, 2023, and I just kind of, the whole time I was stitching this, I just wished that I had done it on a different fabric. So then Kim from Contented Needleworker Kim, her channel, she was suggesting to me that I just finish this whole top band and make a drum out of it. So then what happened was I finished it, and then I was like, dang it, now I actually am liking it on this again. So that's why it's a finish for now, because I'm undecided if I'm gonna continue and stitch, what is it, 2 or 3 more bands, or make this into a drum. So I still haven't decided yet, but I'm gonna share it as a finish for now. This is 40 count, piece of very dark and dirty that I dyed. But this green is used a lot, and it's just ghosting a lot. A lot of stuff is ghosting on this fabric. It needed, it basically just needed like a cream. A very light cream, kind of. Or a very, very dark fabric, which I wasn't about to do, so. Yes, that was my GGR, Dutch Steps of Life. Another one of my favorite WIPs. This is Oh Joyous Day from Blackbird. This is the only remaining Blackbird WIP that I have that is using 2 strands of floss. I do really, really like it. This is on a 28 count that I overdyed. And so I'm liking the coverage. However, it's still a little puffy for me. So anyway, choices, right? This is using my own conversion of flosses, and yeah, this pattern is just, it's just gorgeous. I love it, and it's quirky, and I just would love to get some more work done on this. So that's Oh Joyous Day on 28 count by Blackbird Designs. On May 18th, 2023, I started Bethlehem from Imaginating. It's this really beautiful monochromatic horizontal scene of Bethlehem, and I'm stitching it with Sulky. This is my only project I'm stitching with Sulky, and I wish that I was stitching this on a 32 count or not use Sulky on 36 count, but you know, again, things I've learned. This is the number 710. It's just this beautiful navy. So I like this. It's a little too tight for me though, but that's because I'm using Sulky, not DMC. So that's okay. I really, really love it. It's quite effective and beautiful. And this is a piece of fabric that I overdyed. There's nothing super similar to this right now on my website. I would say Footloose is probably your closest, but this is even a little grayer in the base than that. So anyway, here it is. We're doing 1/2 on this one. This is 36 count, and this is Bethlehem by Imaginating. My next WIP is the Christmas Alphabet series by Jan Hicks Creates. And last year I had A and B done, and this year I finished C and then started in on whoop, D. D for deer. I love this series so much. I bought all of them, and they're all gonna go on this piece of fabric that I overdyed. This is 40 count, and I'm using 3 colors of floss. They are all silks that I just picked from Stash. I have, I believe, a Dinky Dyes, an MPI, and I think a Belle Soie. So I love this series and I love these flosses. I think I want to use these exact flosses for Blackbird Designs Christmas Garden. I just love it. So when I was at the attic, I saw Christmas Garden done on, I think it was a green. I took a picture of it, but it looked so good. So anyway, there's that 40 count, 1/2 Jan Hicks Creates Vintage Christmas Alphabet. And that was started on May 19th. On May 20th, I started this Patriotic Stitch Americana Sailboat Sampler. You've been seeing this every month since May of 2023 because I stitch on it on the 4th of the month. And I am getting very close to a finish. As you can see, I stitched on this again in the last 2 weeks, so since my last update. All of these words down here are new, and I started putting in the bottom ribbiting. So this is a piece of linen that I overdyed. This is 40 count, and this is kitted up from my stash with the exception of Heirloom Gold, I believe was called for. That's the only thing that I'm using that's called for in here. So yeah, we're to May 20th, 2023. Here is my next WIP. This is Pumpkin House from Pansy Patch Quilts and Stitchery, and I believe that this was mostly the called fors. And my intention was to continue this series and do another one, and I was like, hey, I'll just wait till it gets rolled again, and then it never got rolled. So I do really love this brand. It's like Blackbird, but a little bit more playful and colorful. So there's that one. So I started this project in June of 2023 and then restarted it in September because the original linen that I had picked was just a really intense one from Bestitch Me and I couldn't see the floss on it. So I restarted it on this linen that I overdyed, which intentionally I made it a very subtle modeling so that I could really see these flosses. So this is a project from Hello from Liz Matthews. It's called the Vanity Sampler. And what the flosses that you're seeing here is a conversion of a conversion. So Cam from Cam the Stitcher, she made this conversion that uses these darker greens, bright like magentas and some teals and stuff. And then I went ahead and used that DMC conversion and put it into overdyed flosses. So that is where I'm at so far. So I like it. It's a cute little sampler. I have to say though, it's not one that is my favorite to stitch on, so I don't often think of stitching on this. What really drew me in though was that conversion that Cam did. I thought that would be really fun to have a magenta sampler, a magenta and teal sampler. So that's why I still keep going on it, even though I rarely think to stitch on this one, unfortunately, but I still do really like it. So this is 40 count. So I'm doing 1/2, and that's the Vanity Sampler by Hello from Liz Matthews. This next design is my first needlework press I ever started. This is And Be Kind, and I've got a lot of progress on this one recently, but I started this on July 9th in 2023. And I really love it. It's so pretty. This is a 40 count, dyed by me, kind of oatmeal colored. I really like the modeling on this one. So, yes, this is my own floss conversion as well. I just pulled from stash if I didn't have the exact colors called for. So 1/2 on 40 count. Kind of looks like 36 count, but I have written down 40 count. So yep, there's And Be Kind from Needlework Press, and this is a vertical sampler, so it's going to go down to like here, which I really love. And then I also have the other patterns in the series, so I could potentially hang them all together. This is another project that I recently got a lot of progress on. So Heidi from Whips and Kits, we started this together when we were in Paris, the summer of 2023. This is Coquelicots from Reflet de Soie, so my second Reflet de Soie that I have going on a piece of fabric that I overdyed. And we're using the called for silks, and it is just stunning. I love it so much. The last time, my last WIP parade, all I had was this. but as you can see, I've done quite a bit. And then I think this is the one that we're gonna turn into a biscornu. So yeah, I just love these dark blues popping into the, I mean, talk about color theory, just working, doing all the work there for making just this gorgeous expression of this beautiful floral display. So I love it. I love stitching with these silks. I love everything about this project. It reminds me of a super fun trip, and yeah, just really, really love this. And it's like the opposite of Louisa Barney, so it's a small reflet de soie. It is still confetti-ish and very painterly, but it's much more reasonable for me to stitch. So yes, that is on 40 count, dyed by me with the called for silks. This next project is another Vicki Clayton silk conversion project. And this is Jane Fiddes from Hands Across the Sea. And this is such a cool sampler. So just lively and exciting and energetic without being, for some reason, even though I've got the whole rainbow in here, that doesn't bother me like the way that the Mary Morgan's does. I don't know why. This sampler is also really great for me because I love specialty stitches. We've got satin stitches in here already. We've got some black work kind of back stitching going on. So I love it. This whole cool ribbon border right there, it's so cool. So I started this on August 4th, 2023. And my journal says I only stitched on this twice. So I don't know about that, but that's what it says. This is a piece of linen that I over dyed. It's a 40 count, so I'm using 1 over 2, not 2. And I love it. Love, love, love. This is my next finish to share with you. This was a WIP for a while. I started this on August 7th of 2023. This is Vintage Stitches from Jeannette Douglas, and it is now a finish. So first I did bee stitches. I'm only just missing like a little charmy thing right there, but I didn't put the charm in the first one, and I haven't put it in this one, so I don't know. I love this series from Jeannette Douglas. In fact, I love everything that she does. Not to stand too hard, but yeah. So I've moved on to Seaside stitches, which you've been seeing me stitch, but I finished this one on June 7th of last year, so it took me almost a year to stitch it. It is stitched on some even weave. I think this is 32 count that I over dyed. And this was my original start on Tisket to Tasket. And I decided I didn't want to do it on 28 count, but it would have been way better on this fabric. Anyway, here is that finish. I'm going to make it into a pillow just like I did with bee stitches. And it's all the called for flosses. There's silks and yarn and lots of stuff. My next WIP is Spooky Countdown from the Primitive Hare. I love the Primitive Hare. This is being stitched on my dyeing brand, Moonshine Stitchery. It's on Gourd. And I've made a lot of progress since my last WIP parade. So, love it. I originally saw it on Olivia Pumpkin Hollow Quilts on her channel. I'm using the called for flosses. It's mostly DMC and a little bit of overdyed. And I'm using my own conversion of flosses. I think I maybe had a couple of things that were called for, like the DMCs, and then I put in some other colors if I didn't have what was called for. So that's 40 count, 1 over 2. Spooky Countdown from Primitive Hare. My next WIP is now a finish. It is Jack's Bash from Plum Street Samplers, and it is a finish. This one was super fun and had a bunch of over 1 and was intense. This is a piece of fabric that I over dyed, a little dark and dirty tan, and I used my own conversion of flosses on this because I needed to up the interest on some of the flosses, but has yet to be framed, but I really, really love it. If it didn't say Happy Halloween, I'd probably just leave it up all year, and maybe I still will, I don't know. So This was the next one that I had started right after Spooky Countdown, and I decided to finish this one sooner than a lot of the things that I had started before this because I just was obsessed. So 40 count, 1/2, Jack's Bash by Plum Street Samplers. My next WIP I started on September 1st, 2023. This was my back to school project, which was an idea from Lauren, the New Hampshire stitcher. And this is Ann Dale from Shakespeare's Peddler. And as you can see, I have almost the whole top band done. I did stitch on this every day that first September, and then I added it to my Mania project, so it does get rolled a little bit more than other things. I'm stitching this with the called for MPIs, and this is one I'm stitching with Heidi from Whips and Kits and Michael from Davis Quilting Stitching. So we stitch on this sometimes when we have stitchy zooms. So this is a 40 count that I overdyed. It's green. And so I'm doing 1/2 with the MPIs. And I love it, and it's huge. Next up we have my one and only Artsy Housewife WIP. I do have a number of her patterns, and this first one she released is still my very favorite. And I was making some pretty good progress on this, and then I just kind of stalled. I don't know why. So I'm stitching this on this cool piece of purple fabric that I overdyed, and I'm using my own flosses, even some silks that I overdyed. I started overdying my own flosses around this time. Let's see, I started this on September 13th, 2023, and so I even have some of my own flosses in there. So this is just such a cool pattern. I'm so excited to have it done. I just need to pick it up again. And I think this is in my Mania, so it should come out more, but you know, it's just what happens with the random wheel. So yep, there's Golden Delicious from Artsy Housewife on 40 count, 1/2. I have finished 3 or 4 things from Barbara Anna, and they were smaller. And then I started All Things Great and Small. And this is a sampler, and it is very similar-ish to Consider the Lilies. But I'm stitching this on this piece of blue that I overdyed that I love, love. And yes, what was I thinking of? Oh, I'm using the called for anchor flosses on this one. I do like the anchor flosses. They're nice. They're a little fluffier maybe than the DMC. So I started this on September 15th, 2023, and it's 40 count, and I'm doing 1/2. On September 26th, I started another one of my faves. This is Hannah Sanderson from Dutch Treat Designs, and this is a piece of 40 count that I overdyed, and I'm using my own conversion of flosses. So kind of similar to Memories of the Past. There's a lot of colors in the border, and just a lot of colors in general, and the last time I got this out, I was like, I'm just gonna stitch with this one color and start putting in all of this, all of the words. So that's where I'm at. I really, really like this. It is, again, it does have this painterly style, so it's a lot of confetti kind of floral going on. This would be another one that'd be awesome to be in markup, but so love this pattern. I think Michael said he's gonna start this with me, and I believe I'm doing the light version. So 40 count, my own floss conversion with some kind of blue, like a little bit of smoky blue fabric that I dyed. This project I started on September 31st, 2023, and I have stitched on this a lot, and it is still not done. I stitch on this on the 30th of every month. This is Blackberry House from Plum Street Samplers. So I'm getting quite close to a finish, but I still got a bunch of stuff to put up at the top. But here's what is done. And again, this is stitched on another piece of fabric and flare. This is probably the project that made me just really decide that I'm done stitching on this fabric. Because this one comes out a lot, and I just am constantly picking everything off this fabric. It's like Velcro. So the color though, the color is so pretty. And this is a printed fabric. This is the color Dried Petal. So I really, really love the color, especially for the design. I'm using all the call for flosses, 40 count, so I'm doing 1/2. And this is a project for my daughter Joy. She was born in 2015, which also happened to be what was charted. So I just stitched it as charted. There's a bunch of little over 1 in here, like this little horse guy. Actually, maybe that's only over 1 so far. But this is when I learned that I love Current, the floss Current, so much. It's just, oh, so good. I'm gonna do a whole monochrome chart in Current, for sure. Look at the back of this thing. It's just, it's filthy with floss. Not so much with dirt, but it's like collecting every piece of lint, hair, ort, anything you can imagine. Okay, I think I've gone on and on about it enough in this video. It's just, every time I get a piece out with it, it reminds me. Okay, here is another project that I was kind of gung-ho on and then I lost my steam. So I am planning to do the 12 Days of Christmas by Hello from Liz Matthews all together in one big chart. Maybe that's why I'm losing my steam. I don't know, because I'm thinking about framing this thing and it's gonna be huge. It's gonna take up almost this whole thing. So anyway, this is on a piece of 40 count that I overdyed. I am using all the called for DMCs and they are just absolutely darling, but I kind of just ran out of steam on it. So anyway, I think this came out one time in 2024 because all I had was this border part last time. So it is very cute, and every time I see somebody stitching on them, I'm like, yes, I gotta get that out again. It's so cute. But then I stitch on something else instead. And so it goes. So 40 count, 1/2, Hello from Liz Matthews, 12 Days of Christmas series. I started that one on October 9th, 2023. This one I started on October 13th. And this one I love so much, and it's on one of my crazier fabrics that I've dyed. And whoop, let's see. This is not one I currently have the recipe for, which is probably why I haven't put it up on the website, but it makes for a really fun Halloween fabric. Okay, so this is Toil and Trouble from Plum Street Samplers. I love this one so much, especially on the purple fabric. Maybe that's what I needed to do for the Addams Family. It needed to be on Halloween-y purple fabric, and then it would have been more interesting. No, but look, it already has way more interesting colors. So I'm actually using my own conversion of flosses on this one too. I probably just used whatever I had and then pulled a few more. So I think this has come out, it looks like 2 other times besides the day that I started it, so it just needs some more work. But I really, really love this one. So, scrumptious. 40 count, 1/2, dark and dirty, but Halloween dark and dirty. On October 17th, I started Autumn on Lazy Bear Mountain from Kathy Barrick. Again, on a piece of fabric that I overdyed. Very Halloween-y. And I'm using the Vicki Clayton Silk Pack for this one. So mostly different from last time in my last WIP parade. I had a lot of that already, so I think I was just working on getting this border drawn out. This is a pretty big project. I believe I saw this on Lisa, Kindred Stitcher, and she did the whole thing over 1. And I was just like, oh, I gotta do that thing. It's so pretty. I really do enjoy Kathy Barrick's designs. And yeah, so this is over 1 on 40 count. Vicki Clayton Silk Pack. I haven't got this out in a minute. Let me see. The last time I got this out was April 13th, 2024. So it's almost been a whole year since I've stitched on this bad boy. So I've just been letting the fates decide what I stitch. A lot of times that's what I do. I use my random wheel. This linen is really, really fun. It's this cool mauve modeling. It's a grapey mauve. It almost looks bruised. It's really cool. We are into November 2023. So I am stitching this, this is GGR, Biedermeier Sampler. I also adore this project, and I'm stitching it on plain cream because there's a lot of colors and the rows are all changing up each time, and I just really wanted a very clean look for this. So this is the fabric I should have used for that other GGR. But again, you live, you learn. So love this project, but it does have a lot of finicky color changes in here. That's okay. I'm using my own floss conversion. So 46 count to help it not be quite so big. And I forgot that I had so much done on this. I was really working hard on this because in just a few months, this is what I got done before the next WIP parade. And then I don't think I got this out a ton since last year. Oh, I only stitched on it in the summer after my WIP parade last time, and then just that one time. So this beauty needs to get rolled. Come on, fates. I like leaving things up to chance, if you don't know that about me. Yeah. And if you don't hear me tell you, this is in my, like, one of my 3 or 4 project bags that I have stitched just to see if I could. And then I learned that I didn't really enjoy it that much, so I didn't do more. I did like 4 of them. And then I decided I'd rather be stitching. But it's cute and it's cozy. It's cozy for the Biedermeier. My last WIP parade, I had a little start on this. This is Dutch Beauty from a company I can't pronounce the name, but yeah, this thing is massive and super fun. And it's giving me GGR Dutch Steps of Life vibes, but I didn't put it on such a crazy fabric, so it's easier to see. This is something that I overdyed. Well, there's the craziness. If you don't hear me say what the fabric is, just assume that it's something that I've dyed. And I do that a lot because I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with it. So, yes, this is using, sorry, I was looking at that lady's face wondering if there was a stitch missing. This is using my own floss conversion from what I had in stash. And I believe that Michael, I think, is stitching this with me, and Heidi. This tree is so cool. I love it. And then the deer, I stitched that deer last time. And then this, even just this ground with the switch between the little purple and the green. So pretty. So, love this one. 40 count, 1/2. My next start was on Thanksgiving 2023. I started Dwelling Place with Jan from Hoop It Up with Jan and Laurel from I Am a Stitch Nerd. And Jan's is finished already. Laurel, I can't remember if you've finished yours. But every time I see Jan stitching on one of the things we started together, I get a little swift kick in the behind and I'm like, come on. Remember how much you love this? Okay, I'm a huge Teresa Kogut fan, and this project just sang to me. It was like a siren song. So when Jan said she wanted to start it, I was like, oh yes, let me start that with you. This is stitched on a piece of Moonshine Stitchery fabric. And it's 40 count. And I'm using my own floss conversion. And I just love it so much. So this is Dwelling Place. I mean, I could probably just stitch on this one monogamously if I didn't have so many other projects that I love. And so after Jan finished this one, we started another Thanksgiving project this last Thanksgiving, which you'll see coming up in a little bit. But we're getting to close to the end of 2023. We're almost there. My next WIP is the Happy Heart sampler from Birds of a Feather. And I was stitching it off of a borrowed copy of the original release of the pattern. And I did 32 count. I used 32 count die by me. This is a finish and it's up on my wall upstairs and I didn't grab the framed piece, so I'm just going to show a picture of it. It's using my own conversion of flosses. I started this on, okay, this says I started this on New Year's Eve, December 31st. So basically I went from a start on Thanksgiving and then I didn't start anything till December 31st, apparently. Oh, that's right. And then I started a bunch of stuff on November 31st. And then I stitched this for all of January, February, March, and finished April 19th. So I kind of like started this on New Year's, and then I think this was my 2 strands a day. Yes. I think I went Folksy Thomas and then this, and then moved on to Mirabilia. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I finished it on April 19th. So I just really, really love that design and had to do it. So next is my 2019 Santa. I can't remember right now which one 2019 is. If it's this guy or this guy. I don't know, but these are the 3 Santas I've done so far. So since my last WIP parade, I don't have footage of this, either of these guys, so I don't think. So I think that they were both new since that WIP parade. The called for DMCs, with the exception of the reds, are 2 reds from Stash. So this is 40 count Stormy Night from Zweigart. And all the Santas I'm going to stitch on this same fabric. And I want to make little pillows with them, just like Heidi from Stitching Faye does with hers. Yeah. My next WIP was another New Year's Eve start on December 31st of 2023. And it is Elizabeth Weston from Hats, Hands Across the Sea. This project is so beautiful, and I'm stitching it on this piece of linen that I overdyed that I also really love. I'm stitching this with Heidi from Whips and Kits, and she started it on this kind of like gray, deep gray, almost purpley fabric. So I dyed something to match because I was obsessed with her start. I'm using the called for MPIs, and I love them. The saturation of this color here, I'm just living. And the fact that it's going to be in the entire border, I'm so excited about that. I don't have a ton of progress since my last WIP parade on this, sadly. But guys, this is going to be absolutely huge. This is 40 count. And I have this huge piece of fabric for it. So, yeah. But I love it. All of the hats that I've started, I really, really love them. So, good times. This next project is Leona's Sewing Box from Blackbird, and this is a heritage piece that I'm stitching for my grandma Leona on my father's side. I have finished a monochromatic piece for my maternal grandmother, and this is for my paternal grandmother. And I had a tiny little measly start on my last WIP parade that I did on New Year's Eve, and I have recently got a lot of work done on this. I'm using Silken Colors in the burgundy, which is really pretty for my monochromatic stitching. This is not a monochromatic piece, but I'm making it work because her name is Leona on the pattern, and that just fits so well. So I'm doing things like leaving spaces out for the eyeball, and then I gotta figure out what I'm leaving out of the windows so you can actually see the windows and it's not just a solidly stitched house. So I'm figuring it out. But this is another piece that I had in common with Jan from Hoop It Up with Jan. And she stitched it for her grandmother, and she's already done. So yes, it's not that big. So I'm excited that I got some more work on that recently. This was in the last 2 weeks. So this will also be shown again in my next update video. That's a 40 count piece that I overdyed. It has some really lovely soft, like sand dollar modeling on it. Okay, my next start was Riley Harbor by Kathy Barrick. This has since been UFO'd. It's in timeout / UFO. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to finish it rather than timeout because it's very similar to another piece that I like a lot more right now. So I took this out of my WIP basket since my last WIP parade because I just found myself never wanting to stitch on it. So that's all we'll say about that one. That one was another New Year's Eve start, as is this one. This is a peacock, a unicorn, a badger. And I love it. I think it is so cute. A lot of people are stitching on this for good reason. It's kind of like coloring book fill-in stitching. It's from Scarlet Letter. I dyed this piece of fabric specifically for it. This is kind of the color I should have dyed for Autumn Town, but super, super saturated green because all of the background, I'm not doing the stitching on the background green. So I love it. It's so cute. I'm using the called for DMCs. This is 40 count Moonshine Stitchery fabric. And I started this, like I said, on New Year's Eve, 2023. And let's get into 2024. Let's see, is my next one gonna be 2024? Yay, it is. This one I started on New Year's Day, 2024. This is, whoops, I grabbed out the extra piece of fabric here. This is a continuation of Cottage Garden samplings. animal series. This is the swan. I already cut the teeny tiny piece that I needed for it. This is the same fabric that I did the fox on. And here's what I have done so far. I'm planning on just finishing it exactly like the fox. And I have enough fabric, as you can see, to do, clearly, to do the third one in the winter. But this series has so much stitching in it that it's just kind of slow going. I remember the fox took me a really long time. So this piece of fabric is Coat of Doves by Atomic Ranch. It's the 18 count Ada. And then with this one, I just kitted up from stash, and what I didn't have, I just did my own conversion on. So I do really like it though. It's so cute. So 18 count Ada, so I'm doing 2. Am I doing 2 over 1? Some of these stitches look like it's 1 over 1. Nah, I think it's 2. Anyway, I thought I stopped starting things with 2 strands, but yes, I think I wanted it to look very similar to the other one in the series, so I started it the same way. My next WIP is Pretty Little London from Satsuma Street, and it is a finish. Sorry, I said my next WIP. This was a WIP in that video, and now it's a finish. So this is using 2 strands of the called for DMC on this piece of printed Ada from the craft store. It's probably a 16 count, and this is the second out of 3 that I'm doing in this series. Hawaii, London, and a current WIP I have is Paris. So there's that finish. This is another New Year's Day start. This is Scarlet House Jane Cowie, and I have a pretty weak start on this. I mean, it's more than the day I started it, but really all I've done is continue with this border. I haven't really got into the meat very much, which is not like me. But this is a piece of fabric that I over dyed. I think it's gonna look really great with it. I'm using the called for MPIs. This is 40 count. And the thing I love so much about this one is the super punchy reds against the greens. So I really wanted to go for the called for MPIs with this one. So it's just ridiculous I haven't stitched on this more because it has all the stuff I like. You know? So just waiting for it to be rolled. This next project is the one that made me UFO Riley Harbor. This is Teresa Kogut Hometown Sal. And it's basically like Riley Harbor without an ocean element, but it's just stitching a whole village, and this one is a lot more interesting to me. And I'm spending so much time on it because it's a Sal, so I never really was thinking, oh, let me stitch on my other town, project. I guess maybe that's the same thing for Autumn Town too. But anyway, I love this. This is a tier 4 Sal from Teresa Kogut's Patreon. Here's the most recent month that I did. And I believe when you saw this last year, I only had this top row over to here. So I'm stitching this on Lugana. This is another piece that's just making me love Lugana. I over dyed this in a non-modeled way to kind of just look like the dirt road behind all these buildings. Or the dirt land? I don't know. I'm imagining I'm back in like the well, this is more built up than the 1700s, probably maybe like 1812 or something. I don't know. Don't pay any attention to me. I'm not a history buff, but I am currently reading Outlander, and Jamie and Claire are in America. Spoiler. This book has been out since the 1990s, so you probably know a lot about it, or some at least. Anyway, they're there in the 1700s, shortly before the Revolutionary War. And I don't think places are as built up as that by then. What do I know? But that is a 32 count Lugana, and I'm doing 1 over 2 on 32 count using my own conversion from Stash. If you were wondering why I'm not showing you any other project bags, it's because I often just use the bag that the pattern comes in or a Ziploc bag. Because I can't really be bothered. I'd rather spend my time / money on stitching. So this next project is Kathy Barrick Fractor Flowers, and I love. This is a project I stitch on the 21st of every month for my other daughter, so I have 30th of the month and 21st of the month. For my 2 daughters, they both picked projects for me to stitch for them. And this one is using all MPIs except for like maybe 3 that I didn't have. And so I just kitted the rest up from Stash. This is a 40 count. 1/2, just really punchy again with those MPIs, so beautiful. This is a piece of fabric that I overdyed, and I really love the coloration. So, yep, that's Fractor Flowers by Kathy Barrick. Super beautiful. And this was a start on February 21st of 2024. The next start, I'm jumping to April. So I did a lot less starting in 2024. This next project, like I said, I started in April. This is Emmeline Hotchkiss from Cross Stitch Antiques. My only WIP from that designer currently. And I saw that Kim from Contented Needlework, or Kim, and Audrey from Stitch Bead were starting this together, and I was like, oh, I really like that. I haven't stitched that designer yet. Let me start it. So I kit this up from Stash. I started this on April 1st. Here's where I got to. It looks like I got this out 3 times this last year. So it's due to come out again, definitely. I feel like it's a pretty wide sampler. I feel like maybe that grass has a ways to go still. But it's just really pretty. Some beautiful bright reds and then the gorgeous greens to go with it. So, yes, that's Emmeline Hotchkiss from Cross Stitch Antiques. 40 count, 1/2. Okay, so now we're past my last WIP parade. So I'm not gonna have any progress pictures for the rest of these. So this is Hannah Campbell from Hands Across the Sea. What I've said about this one a number of times in the past is that it is the coolest sampler out there. There's so much going on and so much fun to be had with this sampler. I'm stitching it on 40 count. There is some over 1 in this pattern that I'm stitching on 40 count. So that's gonna be a little difficult, but that's okay. Like all these letters are gonna be 40 count, and then I think in here it's a bunch of 40 count or something. An adventure. So I'm using my own floss conversion with this. But I am very happy that I was able to get this out a few more times this year because this project is just so cool. I'm stitching it with Heidi from Whips and Kits and love that one. So looks like I started that the end of April 23rd, 2024. Looks like my next start and finish was She Sights a Bird from Blackbird Designs. I'll have to pop a picture in of my finish. I finished it into a pillow. I'm doing the Loose Feather series from Blackbird. I'm doing them all on 32 count, 1/2 on 32 count, and finishing them into pillows, and I forgot to bring that down here with me. So there's that. Psych, this was a January 1st start. I think this was a WIP that I lost for my last WIP parade, so it didn't show up in my last WIP parade. So this was a project I also started on January 1st, and it wasn't in my last WIP parade because I lost it, I think. This is for Where Your Treasure Lies from Abby Rose Designs. This is on 32 count a printed fabric, 32 count vintage smoky white, and it's just a really cute design. So I've only got this out I think 3 times in total, including the start date, and this is how much I've done. It just kind of flows because I'm doing it 1/2 on 32 count, so it's pretty. It flows along pretty nicely. So I don't have a previous picture of this because I couldn't find it last WIP parade, but that was another one of my New Year's Eve new starts that year. Another fave project because I started this with my friend Heidi from Whips and Kits at her house. This is Mr. Collins' Humble Abode from the Stitching Parlor. This is a piece of fabric that we dyed together at her house, and then we went over to Lynn's and we kitted it up. And I'm using half the called for flosses and half from Stash. So I did change a few things to make them be a little bit more visible on this fabric. So I love it. There are a lot of floss changes in this pattern, but I love it, and I'm stitching it with my bestie. And this is a 40 count, 1/2 with some of the called for flosses. That is such a fun series from Stitching Parlor. If you're a Jane Austen fan. And want to see my project bag for this project? It is my Country Sampler bag from when we went to Country Sampler when I was at Heidi's. Another needlework press design. I started Hannah Elliot. This design is so beautiful and I really love it on this eggshell that I overdyed. It looks really pretty on that. So apparently I'm going a little bit backwards in time. I started this in May, and I'm using flosses from my stash, and it's real cute. It's real cute, guys. So this is 40 count, 1/2. Hannah Elliot from Needlework Press. Love, love this next WIP. This is Big Blue House Pinkeep from Stacy Nash. I started this for Lizzie the Stitcher. Hi Lizzie, for her birthday in 2024 in June. And she said pick any Stacy Nash, and I picked this one. I wanted another patriotic stitch, and it's just so cute. All these colors in here, they're so good. I always think that Stacy Nash patterns are gonna be smaller than they actually are. This is a piece of 46 count. It's just something that I didn't even dye at all. I just grabbed it from Hobby Lobby. I think it says it's an embroidery floss or embroidery linen, but it's 46 count. So I snagged it and I'm stitching this on it. And so it's gonna be decent size for a pin keep, even on 46 count. I'm doing 1/2, 46 count with my own conversion of floss from Stash. This was when I started my love affair with cottage garden threads and Threadworks, and I started wanting to put one of those flosses in every single thing I was stitching. This next WIP I started on June 30th, and I finally started a Mill Hill kit. I started the Village Bakery, but this guy is a little bit of a problem child because when I opened the kit, I didn't realize that the flosses weren't sorted. So since then, I have purchased some little floss, like rectangle-y thingies where you can sort the floss into your own little, your holes, basically. Your holes. Anyway, so what am I trying to say? I need to just sit down and sort these flosses because I'm not sure that I put the right color in here because they're not sorted. I don't know if I was picking the right shade of green, so I'm just kind of sitting here like, is this even gonna turn out right? It's really not that important if I used the super dark green or the barely slightly lighter sage green there, but that's my one Mill Hill that I've started. And I have now learned that I absolutely must sort those flosses first. On June 24th, in celebration of Sarah Stitchy Spot and Judy Stitching Bunny for their birthdays, I started Florence Mary Dickinson from Hands Across the Sea, and I love this design so much. It's so colorful and super, super fun. Look at those purples. I actually made a mistake, and this vine that's going all the way through is supposed to be a brown, but the symbol looked very similar to me, so it's either supposed to be a brown or a light brown, I don't know, a light green, I'm not sure, but it's not supposed to be that super dark, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So anyway, I love thinking about those two wonderful ladies. When I pull out this piece, this is a piece of linen that I overdyed at Heidi's house when I was there, and I remember because she zigzagged it with this cool Christmassy floss. I just love it. So it's very dark and dirty, Florence Mary Dickinson 40 count with my own flosses from Stash. Okay, this next WIP is not cross stitch, it is needlepoint, but I still want to share it. I started a new craft when I was at Heidi's. We went to Stitchery, and she sells a lot of needlepoint, and I was like, what is this? Teach me the ways. So she set this up for me while I was there. Oh, I think it actually goes this way. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And she kit me up, and anyway, I'll pop a picture on the screen of what it should look like. This is Lavender Fields from Laura J. Perin, I think. And I have only got this out a couple times since last June, but I love it. We are to September. Believe it or not, we're almost done. I really didn't have that many starts the last half of 2024, or most of 2024. So this is my back to school sal for 2024. This is Mary Bars from Stacy Nash, which I saw when I was at Country Sampler and fell desperately in love with, and decided that this big beauty needed to be my back to school piece for that year. I'm stitching on this really cool piece of fabric that I overdyed for this, and it's gonna be huge. That is the width of it, but I do need a little bit into this fat half for the length of it. Wait, oh yeah, I have done the whole border on this, that's right. So let me back up a little bit. So I have stitched on this since my last, this will be my next update video because I did this whole white alphabet and then I started putting in these motifs. So this has got a little bit more progress on it since the last time you saw it. Looks like I also dyed this at Heidi's house because I've got this beautiful thread on there. So fun. So that's 40 count Mary Bars by Stacy Nash, and that's my own floss conversion. My next WIP, I don't know why this is out of order because I started this on August 7th, 2024, but this is my next Jeannette Douglas Stitches series pattern, and I'm getting very close to a finish on this. So right now I'm working on the Bargello, and then there is another row of it like this, not the same exact stitch. And then yesterday and the day before I finished all of these little over one creatures, and then there needs to be some over here, and then that's the end. So this, and then the end. So I love it. Like I said before, I love Jeannette Douglas. And I already have my next one that I'm going to start this August 7th picked out, but I think I should have this done. I would say I only need maybe like one more stitchy session on this. So that is a 32 count piece of even weave that I over dyed. And I am doing 2 over 2 on some of the spots for this, but 1 over 2 on some of the others. It just depends on what kind of stitch is called for. This next one is Pretty Little Paris from Satsuma Street. Like I mentioned, I am doing this series. I've done 3. This is my 3rd one. I stitch on this on the 10th of every month to celebrate my anniversary with my husband. I'm doing 2 over 1 on 16 count Aida so that they'll all be the same. And I just think it's so cute. I'm getting pretty close to a finish on this one too. So this comes out every month, and I over dyed this piece of Aida with the sage coloration, so I thought it would look well, or look good with the kind of somewhat pastel-y shades that they picked for Paris. Well, not really pastel, they're more like soft popsicle colors. Anyway, this is a super fun stitch. So that is Satsuma Street, Pretty Little Paris, new since last WIP parade. My next start is the one I was referring to for this last year's Thanksgiving. I started this with Hoop It Up with Jan and Laurel from I'm a Stitch Nerd, and this is And God Saw from Teresa Kogut. I'm stitching this on a piece of Moonshine Stitchery cobblestone, and it's a 40 count, and I'm using my own flosses, my own floss conversion. And this one is gonna have some dense stitching, but I at least have made a little bit more progress. On Thanksgiving, I got this tiny little start. What did I even do? I got like that. It was like that much. It was so meek, but meager, but it's gonna be so pretty. The colors are so pretty. So thank you again for inviting me to stitch with you, Jan. I am loving that and need to get that out some more. Okay, we are to December. December, I started the Christmas Swan from With I Needle and Thread with Heidi from Whips and Kits and Kim from Contented Needleworker Kim and a few other people. And this is where I am. This is a piece of 46 count over dyed by me. And I'm just using flosses from Stash. So 1 over 2 on 46 count. So there's that one. There's not a massive amount left to go except, you know, this huge swan butt. So yeah, that's really pretty though. I believe with the same group of people, I also started Felicidades Recuerdos 2 from Needlework Press. This is a piece of Vintage Country Mocha, I think. This is 40 count. And this just has my little start from the day we started it, which was December 8th. I haven't got any more done on it since then. So I just need to bring it out on a 25th or so of a month or something. I stitch on Christmassy stuff on the 25th. So there's that, 46 count, 1 over 2, and I am using just flosses from Stash. There's only like 6 colors in that project, so it's a cute little one. And I saw it all finished up when I was at the attic last weekend. So yes, mine is gonna look a little less purpley. I went a little bit more berry and less purple on the one floss that looks kind of browny purple. This next project I started on December 1st. I'm stitching it with Heidi from Whips and Kits and Michael from Davis Quilting Stitching. And this is Christmas at Hawk Run Hollow. And I need to measure again and make sure this is all gonna fit on there. I think it will, but that square is looking huge to me. So I don't think there could fit 3 of those. So maybe I'll have to do it. Oh, that's right. I've just freaked myself out. I'm stitching these as little pillows, and then I'm gonna make like a display with the pillows. Wow, I just freaked myself out. Because I know that Heidi and Michael are both stitching it all as one, and I was like, wait a second, looking at that fabric. Okay, so I'm using flosses from Stash. This is 40 count that I over dyed. Mine's gonna be a little more colorful because I do have some pretty fun Christmassy flosses, like a really special one from Cottage Garden Threads in there. So, love this. They are way farther along than I am, but that's okay. It was a start along, not a stitch along, but we started that on December 1st this last year from Carriage House. That's Carriage House, Christmas at Hawk Run Hollow. We really are almost done. This was my New Year, New Start this year. This is the MacFarlan sampler from the Wishing Thorne. It is such a cool looking sampler. It reminds me of old California missions. And I'm stitching it with Mountain Mist from Weeks. And this is on Moonshine Stitchery Rhapsody. And this is in 46 count. So that's how far I got on New Year's Day. And so yeah, that one is so cool. I had been holding on to that one for a while and being like, I am starting that on a special day. It is a very special project. We are finally to that Carolyn Manning that I was talking about that made me break my stubbornness to not start another one. Well, she released that super awesome Christmassy one, Please Be Home for Christmas, this last year, and I had to start it. So I took this piece of 20 count Aida and dyed it, this lovely berry purple shade, and started it. And this is using the Call for DMCs, and see what I mean? Like, well, it also helps that it's on not like such a light white shade of fabric, but it's coming along quickly. You can't see through like a lot of white poking through. I just really, really like Carolyn Manning's designs on Aida. So yes, this is just, I think this is 2 days of stitching. I started this on February 10th. And I think, like I said, I stitched on it for 2 days. Okay, I'm back 4 hours later. We needed to leave for a family dinner, and I thought I could get done in time, but I didn't. So I literally have 3 more projects, or like 4 more projects to talk about. Okay, so what day did I start this? This was on February 20th of this year. This is the lantern from Primitive Hare. She has a 12 months of Christmas sale going on. So I'm gonna receive a ornament pattern the end of every month. So this was January's, and then February's is a like fireplace. I haven't started that yet, but this was just 1 day of stitching on this. And there's just a few colors. This is on Moonshine Stitchery Mocha Mousse, which is it's also the name of the Pantone Color of the Year for 2025. This is 40 count. I'm using, let's see, yeah, that's not even DMC 310. I just went off of her DMC list and picked colors from my stash, overdyed shades. So that is Lantern, and it is 2/1 on 40 count from the Primitive Hare. And then on February 10th, I started Anne Grimshaw from the Scarlet Letter. And this is a buddy stitch with Heidi from Whips and Kits and Michael from Davis Quilting Stitching. This is how far I got done in 2 different Monday stitchy zooms. We did one here, and then my second one was here. I'm stitching this on 46 count Barrow from Moonshine Stitchery. And I am using my own floss, which looks like this. I still haven't organized it into a skein, but basically most of the floss is this dark charcoal color, and then there's going to be little pinches of the blue that come in. It's like a deep indigo, but for the most part, it all looks very similar as I'm stitching. It just gives me a little bit more interest while I'm stitching. So the finished product, it's all gonna look more monochromatic, but as I'm stitching, I feel I'm less likely to get bored with having a little bit of variegation in the color. So that is a floss that I dyed especially for this project. So that is Anne Grimshaw. Okay, my very last WIP is called Rainbow Phoenix, and this is based off of art by Nan Tiggleman, and the chart is created by Sam at Modern Cross Stitch. So this is a full coverage piece, and here is the progress that I got on it in one stitchy session. So this is stitched on a piece of 20 count Aida. I'm again using the diagonal parking or diagonal stitching and parking, and so far this is just using like 6 flosses, I think. And this is a project that I intend to give to my brother if I ever finish it, but it's huge. So again, it's more for the journey. And I actually took this piece of stiff Aida and I over dyed it very slightly and washed it and then dried it, and it got a little bit softer, but not nearly as soft as other Aidas that I've tried. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I didn't leave it soaking in lots of dye. I don't know. Anyway, so that is the end of my WIP parade. So you made it all the way through my 2025 WIP parade. I hope that you had some fun hanging out with me today, and maybe you found something that you're interested in stitching. If you're gonna start stitching something that I am stitching, please let me know so we can stitch together. And I hope that if you like what you saw, you give the video a thumbs up and you subscribe, and that'll be super, super fun. Like I said, I make WIP videos, like regular update videos every 2 weeks, so I will see you back in 2 weeks. All of the things that I talked about today will be in the description bar below. And I think that's it. So thanks for joining me. I hope you had some fun, and I will see you back next time. Happy stitching. Bye.